A question I'm often asked is, if there is a good, all-powerful creator God behind this universe, why do we see natural evil? And by natural evil, of course, the questioner is contrasting that with moral evil. Moral evil would be things like crime and sexual abuse and genocide and so on, whereas natural evil, person normally means things like, earthquakes, forest fires, tsunamis, or pandemics. As I record this, we're in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic. If there's a God, why is all that going on? Well, it's a great question, and so let me share some thoughts that, if this is a question that has troubled you, may hopefully help you. First thought I want to share with you is that separating moral evil and natural evil are not quite as clear-cut as you might at first think. Take, for example, the way that the HIV and AIDS virus has caused devastation as it swept through the continents of Africa in the last few decades. Obviously, you'd want to go, well, that's a natural evil, that's a disease. It is, yeah, but moral evil, particularly human greed, and particularly the greedy, selfish behaviour by some Western drug companies and their reluctance to allow cheap antiretroviral drugs to be distributed, human greed, and therefore moral evil, has made a natural evil massively worse. Or consider earthquakes. And again, you say, well, earthquakes, right? Obvious natural evil. And on the one sense, yes, but again, moral evil often makes things far worse. My sister-in-law lived in Los Angeles for some time. And a few years ago, Los Angeles was struck by a minor earthquake, quite low on the Richter scale, caused a little bit of damage, a few sort of broken legs and things, but I think no fatalities at all. Not long after that, an earthquake of the same magnitude struck Haiti, and thousands of people were killed, tens, even hundreds of thousands of people left homeless, because moral evil in the form of poverty had left and made people much more exposed to the impact of natural evil. And the more you think about this, the more that natural evil and moral evil are deeply entangled. And actually, I think it's not necessarily helpful to separate them. I think it's much better to ask the question, why is there evil in the world in the first place? But continuing that theme for a moment, one of the things that intrigues me is that whenever we turn on the news, open our newspaper, read our news online, wherever you get your media from, and you hear some story of some terrific example of natural evil, a tsunami or an earthquake, or you look at the death toll from the coronavirus, a natural tendency is not to go, oh, that's just nature doing its thing, it's just atoms moving about. We get angry. We sense the injustice. We start saying that ought not to be allowed. The world should be different. It's interesting how angry we get in the face of death and suffering, which is a little bit of a mystery in some ways. Because, of course, if atheism is true, and there is no God, and the world is just molecules and atoms in motion, then there is no way those atoms should be. They simply are. And in fact, to put it bluntly, the coronavirus has exactly the same right to do its thing as you have to do your thing. The moment you start saying things should be different, then you raise the question, why should they be different? And here, I think, lastly, I think the Bible is incredibly helpful, because as it tells the story of what's gone wrong with the world, and boy, we all recognize something's gone wrong with the world, the Bible sets out to explain how when human beings, when we rebelled against God and we decided we'd choose our own way and not His way, and that relationship with God that we were designed for was shattered. In fact, the fracture lines went further than just humanity, but actually damaged creation itself. And the Bible is clear that the whole of the created order is damaged and broken and not functioning the way that it should. The Bible affirms the way that we protest and ask that why question that we're not really allowed to ask on atheism. The Bible doesn't just stop there and say that's what's gone wrong, that's why the world is a mess. But the Bible then goes on to explain and tell the story of how God loved the world so much, not just you and I and human beings, but the creation that He'd brought into existence as well, that He chose to step into it in the person of Jesus, go to the cross on my behalf and your behalf, experience suffering as He hung there and died, and then when He rose dramatically from the grave 3 days later, that was God beginning to put an end to suffering and death and evil and what the Bible calls sin. And the Bible offers out this tremendous hope that if we put our trust in Him, if we allow Jesus to take that place in terms of suffering the consequences of that wrongdoing and our rebellion, then that puts right our relationship with God. But it doesn't end there, because what Jesus did also begins to put creation itself right. And the Bible holds up this tremendous hope and promise that for those who put their trust in Jesus Christ, it doesn't just put us right with God, but it offers us the promise of an eternity walking and talking closely with God again in a renewed and restored creation. New heavens, new earth, restored creation is the promise at the heart of the New Testament, a promise on offer for all who would follow Jesus. And when we look around us today, yeah, we see evil is everywhere in both its moral form and its natural form, but evil is not got the last word on the subject. Love is the last word on the subject, and that hope that is offered there in Christianity is the only answer I know anywhere to all that's gone wrong with creation.